warm welcome to all of you in our fourth edition of Idea Talk series. And we really appreciate for your active participation. So my name is Sandeep Kapoor and I am your host for today's session. And apart from them, I am working as a UX designer and a design strategist at IDEA. So now moving forward to today's talk. So we have Dr. Subhajit Chandra. He is a visual designer and type researcher and educator from India. He has completed his Master of Design and PhD in Design from Department of Design, IIT Guwahati, India. So his research interests include non-Latin typography and type design, reading psychology, and cognitive studies in visual design. And he is currently an assistant professor of design at Department of Design in Shiv Nadar University. Now over to you, Dr. Subhajit.
Okay, thank you, Sandeep. Yeah. Good afternoon, all. So we'll be discussing typography. I'm not sure how many of you know about the topic, but let's begin and then you can contribute. Means more than me, you people may know something much, because I have not worked in the industry for very much long period of time, but I'm in teaching mostly. So maybe your industry experience you can share. I will try my part as I whatever I can do. Okay, so let's begin. So we'll start with some definition. What is typography and all those things. So whether you know, but please bear with us. So typography is the science, art and science, not science or not only art. So typography is art and science of arranging letters or type. So the question is, what is art and what is design in typography? What is art and what is science, not design. Design itself can make sense. So yeah, what is art and what is science in typography? So to understand this fact, first you need to understand what is calligraphy. Calligraphy is art of writing letters. So whenever you are writing a letter using your hand or any calligraphic pen or whatever tool you can use, so that is a kind of calligraphic art form. It is a creative pursuit. The calligraphy, the process is creative process. So then the question is, what is science? So as you know that you can design, you can write letters, whatever your idea is, and based on that idea you can write it. But writing that letter doesn't mean you are a typographer or you are doing typography. To become typographer, you need to consider the science aspect of the arrangement. So the arrangement is the scientific domain of the typography, and the creative pursuit is the letter design part, then the most important part, obviously. And but whenever you are doing this designing the letters, you are doing at that time, you have to follow certain rules, certain methods you have to follow, and that becomes typography. Okay, is it clear? So yeah, now coming to another keyword, so-called that is typeface. What is typeface? This is the terminology we'll be using very frequently, so you need to know. Typeface is the design of the letters, characters. Okay, like I'm designing this A, B, C, D in different way, in different style. So that is what the typeface is. Okay, so they are the typefaces. They are not fonts. Clear? Like when I'm going to design a typeface, I have to design letter A, B, C, D, all uppercase, all lowercase, numbers, punctuation marks, symbols, everything. And the whole set is the typeface, because that is the definition, that is the kind of defining the grammar of whole letter set, or the whole complete all the characters. Okay, so that is what the typeface. Okay, so then what is font? Any idea? Anyone can tell me what is font? Means I don't know whether you can type something, or maybe many of you are asking.
So we have some people saying it's a style of writing.
Yeah, style of writing. Font is contained within a typeface, belongs to one typeface. Okay, like font family. Okay, no, till now no. Comic Sans size 14 is called font. Not so. Okay, let me answer. Okay, anyone from the organizer side, because you people are kind of expert.
Not really. Now it's just broken down into so many parts. I'm not sure what a font means
Okay,
anymore.
I am getting another answer. Divya, font is a scientific invention to define font family. No. Representation word could be, means it is right, but in what sense? Alvin, he said representation, but in what sense? Okay, so a font, nothing but a digital file, like your Word file or PowerPoint file or Excel file or InDesign file or Illustrator file or Photoshop file. Like a font is a file, a digital file, nothing but a file, more than that. Okay, so the letters, whatever you are aware of, you are using every day, they are the typefaces. A font is the digital file where this information, the digital information you have created, that is stored there. Okay, so that is what the font is. So I think you guys are getting. So yeah, so font actually, fonts, they store the information, the digital information. uh, Specifically they store the outline information. So how you design typefaces? You normally design the site, means edges, not edges, means yeah, outlines of the letters. Like here, if you can see A, B, C, D, what you have done, you have drawn the outlines and you have filled the black area. So that is what you do, and that is what at the end a typeface, a set of letters. But at the end, that will not going to work unless and until you put it in a font file and you install in the system. Okay, so that we'll be discussing after some time. Maybe let me finish my presentation. And there are two types. Normally, generally, we use two types of formats, that is TTF format and OTF format. The TTF is true type format, where you can store only 256 character, and OTF format, open type format, where you can store 65,000 characters. Okay, so I don't know whether you have seen any fonts or not. Let me share my screen. Uh, so you can see. So this is the font folder in my system, means in my PC. So where you have to go? You have to go control panel, and there you can find fonts. Uh, yes, fonts, and you can see all the fonts, they are installed in my system. Okay, so they are the fonts, so they are the digital files. Okay, and if you open one, let's say I'm going to open this Garamond typeface, and this one is the regular. So see, this is the digital file where you have stored the typeface. Okay, so this is what the font is. And if you want to install, you can just click here. It will be, since it is already installed, that option is inactive right now. Okay, so that is what the font is. Yeah. Okay, so why we are practicing typography or so-called uh, type design? Why we are doing it? Because there are three objectives behind it. One is the legibility. Readability is obviously readability. Beyond readability, legibility. Whatever you want to read, those words should be legible. And also about the display in sense of aesthetic quality, which makes reading efficient. So aesthetic is kind of experience. Okay, so we need to achieve the aesthetic quality, which will means improvise your experience in sort of time. Maybe your total time of reading, it can be less, something like that. You want to achieve that. So those are the aspect of typography, and that is why you have to follow the rules when you are doing arranging text. Okay, so short history from where they type letters they came. uh, so mostly if we see, okay, before that I want to tell you something, that is, since I am a fond of kind of, I'm a guy who is practicing non-Latin typography, so the history is quite biased towards Latin typography. All the textbook, if you go to any design school or whatever, you will find they refer mostly typography and rules and regulations, and whatever the textbooks and reference books they will provide is mostly based on Latin. So what is Latin? Latin is a script. Okay, Latin is a script which we use to write English language. Language and script, they are different. Okay, so language is the verbal form, means the sound manifestation, and this script is the written manifestation, means the visual manifestation. Okay, and whenever we are studying typography, it is mostly from the perspective of Latin script. Okay, since even the history we studied during our college days, that was also kind of history of Latin, but they will never tell you that it is a history of means Latin typography, but they will tell the history of typography, but it is actually the history of Latin typography. Okay, but since we are living in multi-script country like India, and there are 23 official languages right now, I think, and almost 11 scripts are required to write this 23 official scripts. And so the history is quite huge. And also there are history books. There are hardly any history books which talks about the history of Indian scripts. Okay. So because the history we are studying, it is from the Latin perspective, because initially we were writing, means the Latin script users were writing on stone using stone cutting tools. But here if you see in India, we are using, in South India we are using kind of palm leaves and those tools, and in North India we were using papers and cloths and all sort of things. So the style was quite different. So the the letter forms itself, how you understand letter forms, so they are kind of, the understanding of your past, how they have developed. So one good example is the Oriya script. Okay, so Oriya, they have a very distinct characteristics. They were using something called rounded nib to write on plamlets, and because of their letter forms are quite interesting, quite different. Though they speak, the language is quite similar like Bengali or Assamese language, but letter forms, they are quite the form similarity. If you see, it will be like kind of Telugu or Tamil. Okay, so yeah, so that is what important part, ki how you understand, and that understanding, uh, that knowledge we have, that is based on in past what tools we have used for writing. Okay, so similarly, when we are talking about history, mostly we will be talking about Latin. So they are kind of stone writing. So if you see all this, uh, one of the great example is the Trajan Stone, where one of the first typeface, Trajan typeface, even Adobe now redesigned it, Adobe Trajan. So Trajan Stone, you find these letters. So they are the kind of early stage. They were writing on the stone using curve. So you can see, understanding the complexity. They were the writing was hard. You were using stone cutters tools. So those tools are heavy, and stone was quite solid. You need strength, body strength to write it out. So you will be approaching very much kind of easy way to write the letters. So that is why most of this Latin script, if you see beyond English, the other script, even French, Spanish, they are also using Latin script. So their letter forms are quite geometric, not so much synonymous like Devanagari or Bengali or something others like Indian scripts. Okay, so that is how the letter had evolved. Okay, so the first printed uh, book published by Gutenberg, I think most of you know, uh, from Gutenberg's press, and that was the first movable type. So that is the printing. The idea of printing was there, but printing with movable type means using letter block, the first invented by Gutenberg. Okay, so that is why it is very much important in history of typography, and that was the beginning. And you can see now we have the book, and now we have digital books. Okay, so one interesting observation, not observation, most of the time people talk about, that is type design. That is the most interesting domain, because once it was a mechanical industry, because like Gutenberg and all the people even in India in around end of 18th century we started printing. We were using metal block, we were using big machines to print. So they were kind of involvement of mechanical knowledge was there. And over the period of time, what happened, you understand, you no more required that mechanical knowledge to develop typefaces, fonts, to print a book. Okay, so what you do, you just design letters using any editing software like FontLab or FontForge. Okay, so the industry has changed. The industry changed overnight. Okay, in 1980s, Apple first introduced, sorry, not Apple. That was a joint product. I think Windows 3.1 was introduced, and that time they approached, I forget his name, sorry, and he designed first digital typeface. And I remember the first Apple designed one digital typeface, that is Vardhana, that is there. And yeah, so the whole mechanical industry now is a kind of IT, information technology. Okay, So that is one big change happened in past with typography. So this knowledge transformation or transmission is a kind of drastic for them. Many of them didn't survive. Like you used to call it type cutters, the people who used to cut the letter fonts. So we used to print wooden block, stone block, or it's not, sorry, stone block, either metal block, and those people are no more. They are no more. Okay, that job is gone, because now type designers, they can do everything from drawing to displaying on the screen. Yeah, so that is what happened, and that is how with technology, with modern equipment, the writing systems are kind of, they are evolving. Like we have modern writing system, Latin, alphabetic. Indians are mostly also alphabetic, like Hangul, used to write Korean, that is symbolic writing system. Like Chinese, they are logographic or ideographic. Coming to type classification, as we are using Latin script, mostly we will be using Latin script, and how we classify Latin. So that is one of the most questions. So that is the serif typeface and the sans serif typeface. So if you see the history of Latin like this, or maybe the Gutenberg printing, so you'll find that most of the typefaces are kind of serif. Serif is a kind of ornamentation. Okay, so serif is a kind of ornamentation. If you comment, they used to use, even they are using right now also, will be using it, and it helps in reading or not. The proof is not there, but we say ki it helps in reading. And another type of type is sans serif, where this ornamentation is not there, that a kind of very much blunt, rudimentary, very much basic structure you can see. That is the mostly sans serif typefaces. So we were using mostly serif typefaces, but something happened in 1960s, and that point of time, if you know the history of design, that is something, the Bauhaus movement, and they were kind of, they took that minimalist approach in design, and that is also came to uh, type design, means yeah, typography also. But sans serif font were there before Bauhaus period, but we were not using it. But certain things happened in a period of Bauhaus, and after that it became popular. And one of the first classification we do, that is the serif typeface or sans serif typeface. So yeah, so that is how. And there are many argument and counter argument, which one is a better, and that argument, counter argument, will be doing. Another type of classification is a kind of based on contrast. Okay, so the contrast one is a high contrast, and one could be the monolinear typeface. The high contrast means whenever you are designing letters with the contrast in the letter weight. Okay, like here the first typeface, if you can see, there is a difference in thin and thick stroke, and whatever the difference, we'll call it high contrast typeface. And if there is hardly any difference, though there is difference, but the hardly difference, we call it monolinear typefaces. So there are advantages of using monolinear typefaces and high contrast typefaces. I mean, that is also evident in case of our scripts. Okay, uh, though it is arguable, but let's consider it for the time being. Okay, but if you see historically, the classification is quite different. Like if you go genre wise, the first wave is the old type typefaces, like Garamond, and those typefaces were evolved that point of time, at the beginning, after just invention of Gutenberg printing, uh, and then the transitional typefaces like Caslon Pro, JSON Pro, They are the example of transitional. And then the modern typefaces like Bodoni. Bodoni is a kind of modern. Why modern? Because Bodoni is a high contrast typeface. The typeface, you can see the first typeface, you see this one. This one is a Bodoni. Okay, so from that point of view, the late 18th century, at that point of time, it was a quite advanced thought that high contrast was even possible. So at that point of time, it was modern. Okay, so the modern in type design, the modern period has gone already. Okay, and then the slash serif, kind of, I told you just before Bauhaus only, they tried to reduce these serif features, and the first, they featured these slash serif typefaces, and then the humanist sans. And slowly we are coming to the modern era, means the present era, that is transitional sans serif, that is the most popular typeface, Helvetica, and the geometric sans serif. That is what we are using right now, all Optima, and even I'm using right now this typeface is exo typeface, that is also kind of geometric sans. So that geometric character or nature is there. That is the post era. So that is mostly based on style and evolution of the Latin.